Well, welcome. And for those that I haven't met before, my name is Michael Goldberg. I'm our executive director for the Veale Institute for Entrepreneurship here at Case Western Reserve University, where I'm also a professor at the Weatherhead School of Management. And we are thrilled to welcome back to campus, at least virtually today, Rishi Mahalaha. Rishi and I had a chance to meet back pre-pandemic in 2019. I brought a group of students from Case to the West Coast. Rishi was working at eBay then and was nice enough to host us for a visit. And we've continued to talk about ways to get him engaged with our entrepreneurship community, and are really thrilled that he's taken a few minutes to chat with us today. All of our speaker sessions are moderated by students, and Elliot Casanova, who's joining us from, you have to have my pronunciation of Nicaragua. You say it a lot more elegantly than I do. She just finished her first year of our full-time MBA program, and we're looking forward to having her back on campus this fall, as she's one of our leaders in the MBA program, and I'm hopefully looking forward to having her as our student in the spring. So I will turn it over to Elia. If you're watching here on Zoom and you have a question, just let Elia know either with your real hand or Zoom hand if you want to ask a question. And if you're watching on LinkedIn Live, just put a question in the comment, and then we'll monitor it and get that question over to Elia. So with that, Elia, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that welcoming introduction, Professor Goldberg. It is a pleasure to be here moderating this session, and I would like to introduce our guest of honor, Rishi Mahalaha, who has a vast experience in marketing. Actually, he is the director of CRM and Lifecycle at the Dashlane. He has worked as senior product manager at eBay, OHM Connect, Coupons.com, and others. He is part of the alumni of Case Weatherhead, where he got a Bachelor of Science in Management. We are delighted that Rishi is joining us today to share about his experience.
Thank you, Elia, and appreciate the warm welcome, and thank you for hosting this. I'm super excited to be here.
Before getting started, I would like to invite the audience on Zoom and LinkedIn to ask questions. You can raise your hand or type in the chat or in the comment on LinkedIn Live. To start, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and the major events that led you to work at Dashlane?
Yeah, sure. I could talk forever about my long winding career, but I'll give the short edited version today for this group. So kind of working back all the way to my Case years and graduation. I kind of was one of those students that wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do when I left Case. And so I did what a lot of people do. I went to work at Accenture and did consulting. That was fun. After that, I ended up at a smaller digital marketing agency, which was fantastic. Got to do a lot of different roles. Then eBay became one of the clients, so I spent a lot of time there. No surprise, spent a lot of time in California. Loved that. Jumped ship from the agency, moved to California, started working at eBay, where for the last 10 years, if you look at my LinkedIn, I've worked at eBay, I've left eBay, I've worked at eBay, I've left eBay, I've worked at eBay, with a lot of other e-commerce and clean tech startups, and even a metaverse company mixed in there. So I've done a lot of different things with a lot of e-commerce sandwiched around it. Working through a career of marketing, product marketing, lifecycle, CRM marketing, product management, product marketing. I've pretty much hit every part of marketing at some point in my career, which has been fun. And then at the end of last year, I was at eBay again. Just not really loving my job, not really loving where I was, and just thinking, what would I like to do? This Dashlane opportunity came across my desk. It was an opportunity to go and build a team from scratch. So essentially be the first or the new lifecycle marketing leader, and then hire and build a team, which is really fun to do anytime you have a chance to do that in your career, whether you're an entrepreneur or somebody working at a larger business. And so I took that opportunity. I've been there 6 months. It's been crazy at times, but really exciting, really rewarding.
That's so interesting. What was the biggest learning curve you had from working with marketing focused role to cybersecurity?
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting jump. As I said, my background is so much in e-commerce, and then going from e-commerce to cybersecurity is a little bit of a change. And of course, working in e-commerce, I did see my fair share of cybersecurity work, although it was at eBay, the cybersecurity threats were more, who are these fraudsters trying to hack into people's eBay accounts and take them over and do bad things with it, or hack a coupon campaign, and instead of using getting a lot of new customers to join eBay from a coupon campaign, you get a lot of fake users created by some very sophisticated computer scientists out of Russia. When you followed the IP trails and the Tor and the end domains, and you find some really interesting things. So I did see my fair share of cybersecurity working at eBay, but then working actually in the business and selling it to other businesses is a completely new thing for me, which has been really interesting to learn and see, what does it take to, or what it takes to get somebody that's running a business thinking about how do I protect my business against hackers is very different from how do I get somebody to buy more stuff on eBay, or how do I even get a business to buy more advertising products on eBay. It's a very different type of message, a very different type of intent.
It looks like you are enjoying a lot your job. How is running a director role different from what you thought it would be?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I think being working at a business versus being the sole entrepreneur is different. But once you become a director and move into senior roles wherever you are, or you're the entrepreneur and you are that person, it's that level of responsibility, knowing, okay, I need to think about hiring people. I need to think about people's engagement at work and making sure that I'm setting the team up to be successful. I'm giving them enough challenge in their day-to-day, but also not too much challenge without the support that they need to be successful. And so that's been a big thing that I think it's common to management. But once you become a director and you have so many people in your team and in your org, you have to really think very holistically about that, thinking about what is the career path for somebody relatively junior? What's the career path for somebody more senior that I bring into the team? And how do I balance those career paths if they're kind of in the same sub-team? So I'm not hiring two people or somebody that's going to block another person's possible growth path. So there's a lot of stepping back and really thinking about how do I hire, how do I think about that growth that I think becomes more obvious and apparent and necessary as you move farther up in your career, or if you're the sole entrepreneur hiring people to be on your team for the first time.
Now that you are talking about the team, what skills do you consider are the most important in building a team? And what is the best way to lead them?
Oh gosh, this is Elia, this is a hard question. So what do I think about when building teams, essentially, and what makes it successful? This has been something I've learned the hard way through a lot of trial and error and making mistakes. I bet if you ask this question to 100 alums, you probably get 100 different answers based on everyone's point of view, but I'll give mine. And so I think now looking back at, doing this for 10 years or so, being very open to those that you're bringing into the team, being open to the ideas that they're going to bring, and then extending that, as you think about building a job description and building out the role and the responsibilities of what you need, so that the openness extends to, okay, what are my skills? What am I really good at? And knowing yourself to then say, these are the things I need to complement what I'm good at and my strengths and what I know. And these are the gaps that I have. And so let me, define roles and look for people that are going to be able to come in and fill those gaps that I have. And so that openness, it really starts with being curious about my own strengths and my own weaknesses to then be able to find the people that can complement that. And in my experience, I've had a lot of success finding the people that have been complementary to me. And then ideally where I'm also complementary to them, where then together we're a really good team.
So you mentioned that part of hiring someone is that this person needs to complement the leader. What other questions should I ask myself when hiring for my team?
Yeah, and talking about making mistakes in hiring, I think much younger me, when I had more hair, would have been very biased to hire people like myself. And like, no surprise, I would see Case Western on a resume and I'd get excited and talk about their experience, and that's good. That's good for networking, but it can be bad from a bias perspective, whether it's looking at somebody that went to my high school or went to my school or is from Cleveland, anything like that could bias my point of view, or finding people that think like me, avoiding those kinds of biases. Because while it's great to hire somebody just like me, that looks like me and gets along with me and thinks like me, that's great. But then we all have the same strengths, and we would not be able to complement each other in a good way. And looking back, when I've made those kinds of hires, that hasn't been as good as when I've been very, very deliberate about trying to think about what I need and what I need to complement myself. So I think avoiding those biases is key. And then, then looking for people that are excited about the vision. So being able to talk about the vision of the team, being able to get them excited about it and be excited about it yourself so that they feel excited about it, and then read their excitement. So I think that's a huge thing, because, with any team, with any hiring, so much can be overcome by finding people that are excited, by finding people that have the right mindset to be excited enough where they're going to be able to overcome the day-to-day obstacles that are going to be thrown in people's way. Whether it's like right now, a lot of businesses are struggling with with the pandemic, with the recession, with hiring. And so finding people that have excitement and a little bit of, passion can be overused, but that excitement and positivity for the business and for the career, being able to kind of suss those out in interviews can help get the people onto your team and into your business that are going to be able to overcome those hurdles. So being able to ask those kinds of questions is really key.
I consider that those are amazing advices that you are giving us. So you mentioned that you have built your team from zero. How have you developed the culture of your team?
Oh yes, team culture. So team culture is important. No, it is not by surprise. I have our kind of the Dashlane thing, although I'm kind of blocking it. Our values, you can, oops, over here. You can see these are the company values, and every company has some version of these. Honestly, when you look at a bunch of them, if you spend 15, 20 minutes looking at a handful of companies' values, you'll find that a lot of them are very similar, which is good. It's essentially those guidelines of how we operate here. Like how is it that we're going to go about our work? How do we work together? How do we collaborate? What are those expectations of behavior? So I think those are really important because in any business environment, just like I'm sure in any education or classroom environment, everybody wants to achieve, everybody wants to be the best. And maybe you see this in school in team projects. I remember seeing it in team projects where it's so important, not just for the team to be successful and for individuals to be successful, but the how you do it and how you evaluate each other is so important to achieving that outcome. And it can be so damaging to have a really good outcome, but to kind of burn a bunch of bridges along the way. And so when I try to set the culture in my team, I make it very clear, these are the expected behaviors. This is how I want you to work together. These are essentially the guardrails for how we're going to climb this hill, but I don't want anybody to go outside these guardrails and behave poorly to each other, to them. I don't want them to behave poorly to themselves and burn themselves out or frustrate other teams. And so those are kind of it's almost a common sense guardrail, but I think it's important to state and be explicit about it so teams know, okay, here's where we're trying to go, and these are the goals we want to achieve. This is how we're going to achieve it, and these are the guardrails to keep us from going kind of off the trail and causing problems.
You are a person with a lot of tasks and very busy. What hacks have you developed to stay focused and productive in your day-to-day life?
Oh gosh, I feel like this is such a personal question, but yes, the hacks to stay effective. I think this is just like anything else. It's a constantly evolving thing for me, and I gotta believe for a lot of people, this is something that just continues to change as you go. So for me, one thing is, and I think a lot of people do this, is blocking off time, particularly at the start of my day and at the end of my day, to sort of look at, okay, at the beginning of my day, what are the big things I need to accomplish today? And to start the day with that clear intention of, these are the important things that I need to achieve. If nothing else happens, a bunch of things are going to kind of be unpredictable throughout the day, but I need to maybe nail these 1, 2, or 3 things today.
Establishing
and then having
priorities.
Yeah, and then having time at the end of the day to recap and say, okay, so I started the day with the intention to do these 3 things. Did I do these 3 things? And then being very honest with myself about, okay, well, gosh, I only did 1. Maybe one of them got blocked by something out of my control, and then the other one is completely my fault for procrastinating. But being honest about that at the end of the day to wrap that up, I think is really important. And then making sure that then carries forward to the next day, and then hopefully understanding the patterns of what is causing me to procrastinate on some of these things, and then what can I do about that to really stop myself from doing that, whether it's blocking off time during the day to make sure I do it, telling somebody else that, hey, I'm going to do this by this time. So then there's this other accountability. Now it's not just accountable to myself, but accountable to somebody else. The classic deadline. I think deadlines work. So, I deploy them against myself in that kind of a way.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. Will you like to unmute yourself, Mindy, and ask your question?
Oh no, I can't hear Mindy. Can you hear Mindy?
Okay, I will read the questions. So Mindy says, given the company is located in New York City and your team is in San Francisco, are you having to manage East Coast? Are you having troubles managing East Coast versus West Coast cultures?
So this is a good question. So yes, I'm in San Francisco. Dashlane's US headquarters is in New York. Dashlane also has offices in Paris and in Lisbon, so in France and Portugal. And my team is, I have one person in California, one person in Missouri, and one person in Indiana. I actually have nobody in, oh no, and I have one in New York, I forgot. So I almost have somebody in every time zone. And then the extended team that I work with, so other marketing folks, product teams, engineers, customer support are also in Europe. And so I have to work across 9 hours of difference. I don't think there's anybody further than Central European time, but typically, so what that means for me is I typically work Eastern time hours and then a few Western time hours, so about like a 10-hour, 11-hour day if I had lunch, to just make sure I can sit across all of the time zones. And being fully remote, so all of my team is remote, although the one person is in New York, so he can go to the office, but everybody else is fully remote. And so for us, it's really important to have time together. So, not just one-on-ones, but team time together. Yes, it's a lot of Zoom. We did do one team gathering, and I'd love to be able to do more of these in New York to actually get the team together. That was the first time we all met in person. And so to be able to do that, ideally 3-4 times a year, once a quarter, is, I think, the best way to balance having some team time, but also, being able to balance everyone's lives. Because I do believe everybody is much happier not commuting to work every day, being able to work from home. I'm working from home, like I put on a nice collared shirt today, but I don't have to most of the time, which is great. I do love that. And I don't know if we'll be going back. It does present some interesting challenges for culture though, because now the culture that you would see, that you'd be able to model in an office environment, you don't have that ability to do that anymore just by your office presence. But I think being on so many Zoom calls, that same presence can extend into the Zoom calls, that same presence can extend into how you communicate on Slack, how you communicate in emails, having that organization, having that follow-up. At Dashlane, and I'm sure at other companies, there's mechanisms to share praise and recognition with colleagues. And so using those liberally has been really good as a way to make people feel that recognition and to show that leadership and to drive that culture of, this is how we do it here and this is how we operate. That's a good question.
Professor Michael Goldberg.
Great. Thanks, Elliot. And Rishi, thanks for doing this. And Elliot, if you take my entrepreneurial finance class in the spring, one of the things I like to do is share Bessemer Venture Partners has their anti-portfolio. And I guess when you've been a successful venture fund, you can tease yourself about all the when you're wrong about startups. So they passed on eBay, and the quote from their partner, they're like, stamps, coins, comic books. You've got to be kidding, thought David Cowan. No brainer, pass. And it's actually, they have Google and all other deals that they passed on. I thought it was funny given your eBay arc. You're in your career choices, whether it be eBay or Dashlane or other companies, you're doing your own due diligence. You're doing due diligence on some of the things that Elliot has mentioned about cultures and roles. You're doing your due diligence because my assumption is for anybody who's working in the high tech world that your comp is tied to success of the company. So is it a company that has growth potential and that you can have upside by working there? So I'd be curious if you can sort of walk through a little bit as you think about the different career choices that you made, and a number of them meant returning back to eBay. How do you do that due diligence on making the decision on places to work?
Yeah. Oh, this is a good one. And so, and this is a good question, Michael, because it's so recent that I've gone through this thought process with only being at Dashlane, 6 months. So about 6 months ago, I was literally doing this exercise, and I did this for Connect as well. I think in hindsight, I wish I had done this better for IMVU, but that, my seven years ago self was, not as savvy as my current self. So that's learning. So what I do, especially with any venture-backed kind of startup, is do some reading, through Crunchbase, through all of the companies, it's typically on their About Us or on some of their press and media pages. You'll see what is their latest round of investment, whether it's Series A, Series B, Series C, or whatnot, and see what that valuation is, and then try to figure out what they're, so that'll give you some sense of what they're worth. Try to use that to back into how many outstanding shares they might have. And then as you start to think about what an offer would be, assuming that they're going to give you some form of options, then look at what those are and then try to figure out what that share is. So are you getting, depending on what stage you are in the company, you might be getting a whole percentage, or you might be getting a fraction of a percentage. More likely you're getting a fraction of a percentage. And so what is that fraction, and trying to understand what that is, and then trying to factor that into your math of what is the total compensation for this opportunity, knowing that these options are a little bit of a lottery ticket that may not pay off for some time, but understanding what that could look like. And is that, how would you compare that against maybe a more established company that is giving you, like eBay, which would give me a salary, a bonus, and then the restricted stock, which is a guaranteed reward that I could sell immediately. I know what the value is. It's, much more predictable, but maybe doesn't have the same upside. So trying to do that math, I think, is really important. And, I wish, 7 years ago, myself understood that better, so I could have negotiated better when that offer came up. But now I know that, and now I'm able to do this and, have that conversation and asked to talk to somebody in the finance. I was able to talk to the Dashlane CFO and kind of ask my questions about the valuation and about, where they expect things to go. And as much as he was able to tell me about, plans for future fundraising, which then can have a dilutive effect on those options, just asking a lot of those questions. And now I think there's probably Medium articles out there to kind of walk you through these kinds of questions to ask, but definitely a little bit of research that you have to do to find out what the value of the company is and what the outstanding stock is.
We have another question in the chat from Mindy. It says, as you look to build your team, how to assess candidates for their comfort level with risk or their ability to quickly pivot if needed?
Ooh, good questions. Yes. So how do you understand somebody's ability to change and pivot and be adaptable? I have a lot of questions that I try to ask to suss this out, because it is such an important quality to have people that, and so I guess, the way I try to attack it is I ask questions about, like what's, you know, like tell me about some, you know, maybe constructive or critical feedback or areas for development that you received in your last performance evaluation. And, you know, how did you respond to that? And then how are you reacting and what actions are you taking to, you know, to action against that? And so so the answer to that question tells me a little bit about, you know, were they surprised? Did they agree? Were they maybe somewhere in the middle of kind of agreeing, but also a little bit surprised, which I think are very honest and interesting answers when they're in the middle. And then listening to how they talk about it. Now, I think people have also learned to expect this type of question too. So then there's a little bit of a canned answer that comes back. And so being able to anticipate the canned answer and then probe a little bit deeper with the follow-up questions of like, okay, so great, you got this feedback. You weren't totally surprised because yeah, it was this thing that was a little bit unexpected that happened to you. You were a victim. Okay, but tell me more about what you're going to do going forward. Tell me about how you would coach somebody else through a similar situation. You know, I think that you could get some interesting answers there by maybe taking them out of the situation and asking how they would recommend somebody else do it. I think this is, there's probably a term in psychology that I wish I had taken more psychology classes of how you do that and kind of take yourself or take someone out of the situation, ask them how they would give advice. That's a little trick that I think can work with those types of questions. And then, you know, just sometimes just asking, you know, what are they looking to learn this year? How do they want to grow? What responsibilities would they love to have? This is a question I'd like to use in all interviews. What responsibilities would you like to have next? Which gets them to thinking, and I like to use the term responsibility, because then that brings in ownership, that brings in thinking ahead to what they would want to do. And then I can ask them a ton of follow-up questions around, okay, so what do you think you need to do to get those responsibilities, to earn those, to win those? And then I think that if they can answer that really well, or even just talk me through their thought process on that, that tells me they're thinking about growth, that they would be somebody that, you know, I think that type of growth goes hand in hand with adaptability and the ability to pivot. I think, you know, asking for a story about how they've pivoted can be good too, but a lot of people will have those. I mean, I've got probably 10 of those. And, you know, and they sound great. But they may be a little bit staged, and the follow-up questions are key. So yes, follow-up questions, Mindy.
I have a curious question here. What is your most memorable experience in your career?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I guess I think the one, maybe the one I'm proud of, rather than a traumatic one, would be going, really the decision to leave Cleveland and move to California without a full-time job, but, you know, essentially a foot in the door at eBay to start my career there and do that. So taking a little bit of a risk, knowing that, you know, that was where I wanted to be, you know, like live in California, work in Silicon Valley, you know, doing marketing at a big brand, all of those exciting things, but taking the risk of knowing, okay, I'm leaving everything I know, you know, my established career, 7 years, you know, at a digital marketing agency, working up through the ranks there, kind of going from a bigger fish in the smaller Cleveland pond to a very small fish in the big Silicon Valley pond. You know, but I was I was pretty confident that I'd be able to make it stick. Luckily it worked out. So so we don't have one of those stories. But I think that was a really pivotal time in my career of making that change. And do I wonder what would have happened if I stayed? Of course, I still miss Ohio sometimes, but kind of sunny California makes you forget that after a while. Now it's been 12 years here. So
We have another question in the chat. When you helped the Caps win the NBA championship in 2016.
That was me being snarky. I was trying to pick his most memorable moment. So I was saying, weren't you the 13th man on the Cavs roster?
Yeah,
Okay.
Warriors. Yeah.
So that 2015-2016 season, I went to one game, but it was game 7 of the finals.
Whoa.
So that
you are
was
responsible.
That was a good one to be at.
Thank you.
One of the benefits of living out here was being able to go to that game without having to travel. So that was nice.
All those cocky Warrior fans, that must have been great.
Oh yeah, it was great. They were all gone, certainly by the time the celebration was over and they made us leave.
That's great.
It was good. Then there was also no fighting in the parking lot, so except they had all left.
That's awesome.
Well, we still have time for one last question. And what is your advice for people that want to start in marketing or cybersecurity?
Yeah, so I would say for marketing, I think there's a lot of ways to start. And I don't know that there's any one right way or one best way to start a marketing career. What I'm pretty sure is the way I did it was not the best way or the right way to do it. Working in a marketing agency and almost 10 years into my career, actually working in a proper marketing role versus kind of a digital agency marketing consulting role. And so I think for anybody interested in marketing, working, whether it's, maybe working in an agency is one way to do it. I think working for a brand in an entry-level marketing job, whether it's in, like a paid performance media type of role or a lifecycle marketing role or, building emails, doing social media, any of those things that's going to get exposure to thinking about a brand, thinking about the audience, thinking about the messaging that's going to resonate with the audience, what's in it for the audience, anything like that. Just the fundamentals of marketing, that any job where you would be able to do that, I think is key. And I think, if I'm to stand on the soapbox, everything I learned at Case for marketing is already obsolete, except for some of the very, very marketing basic fundamentals of who is it for, why should they care, and what does it do for them? Like those, if you can answer those questions about any product, any service, and your job is thinking about those, that's going to lead you into good places. Because those are the kinds of fundamentals that don't change. That's the kind of thing I still do now. When I'm trying to pitch something or present something or get the people that I work with to really think about, okay, is this going to work? Are we answering these basic questions for our audience as we're thinking about this launch and thinking about what is the email going to say? What is this message going to say? When they see it for the first time? Is it going to get them to act?
We're out of time, and I would like to thank you so much for sharing with us your experience and knowledge. And thank you everyone for attending, whether you are on Zoom or LinkedIn. And thank you to the Veale Institute for organizing this enriching session and inviting me to moderate it.
Great.
Yeah, thank you everybody, and thank you Ellie again for hosting. Did a great job.
Thank you.
Awesome. I was just going to interject and say, Elia, thank you as well for moderating. You did a wonderful job. Rishi, thank you for chatting. The one additional snarky comment in the chat that because I did notice that you were a ski instructor at Boston Mills, which for those of you not from the Cleveland area, really rivals Veale and Park City for its elevation. I learned how to ski at Tiger. I think Tiger, is that the hill at Boston Mills that has the moguls?
Yeah, that's the toughest one they have.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you were able to launch your both your career from Cleveland to do all the cool things you're doing, and your ski career from Boston Mills onto other places. But I also learned to ski at Boston. It's funny.
Yes, apologies to Boston Mills, but now Boston Mills is actually, it's owned by Veale now. So
I know, it's funny. As soon as I teased it about comparing it to Veale, I was like, actually, they are owned by Veale Resorts. It's so funny. Well, we do look forward, Rishi, to having you back in Cleveland and on campus next time you are here visiting family. And do stay tuned, friends that are joining. We've got a number of future events happening throughout the summer. And then once the school year picks up, we'll be doing these at least once a week. So Rishi, again, thank you, Elliot. Thanks for moderating, and look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.